Yeah, you can dock the Steam Deck 2 and get solid performance, but if you want something that's going to run on your TV, you've got this dedicated box that is going to push better graphics. Like it's a upgrade.
And welcome to Broken Silicon, a gaming hardware podcast. This episode is brought to you by CDkeyoffer.com and their back to school sale for cheap Microsoft software. So today I have a new guest, one that hasn't been on before, but I think one that is incredibly timely, as I've actually, I have a YouTube channel, and this guest I'm sure is familiar with this. You'll see your last top 10 pieces of content and ranking them. But it's half of the beginning of every title has something to do with AMD APUs over the past 2 months here. So who better to have on but a guest that almost exclusively talks about products with AMD APUs? Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Jimmy Champagne, and I have the channel Deck Ready. It's all about the Steam Deck. So yeah, very AMD centric because it's an AMD APU in there. And I have a channel called PSReady about the PlayStation 5, which is also an AMD APU. So I'm all AMD up in here, I guess. But yeah, I reached out to Tom through our mutual friend Dustin, because I watched the episode with Colin from Last Day Media, and there's a lot of interesting Steam Deck talk where you would throw stuff down and Colin's not interested in the Steam Deck. So zip by. I was like, wait, go back to that. This is really interesting. So now it's turned into me guesting on your podcast, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's funny too, because, and I get it, especially with Sacred Symbols, which Colin hosts, it's very business oriented. And if you look at the bit macro level numbers, you're like, well, PlayStation's up here, and you go down, and Nintendo's up there, and you go down pegs to Xbox. Then by the time you're to Steam and their Steam Deck, it seems like it's nothing. But I don't look at it that way, because when the Steam Deck came out, I expected it to sell. I mean, what was even out before it? Almost nothing. I expected it to sell less than 1 million. The fact that it's at whatever it is, 5 to 10 million, to me is this wasn't produced by Sony. This isn't a PlayStation. The fact that it got to those numbers is insane, and I consider that a wild success, to considering that it's also competing with Nintendo directly. It's doing better. It'll probably outsell the Sega Game Gear, and Sega was known for being a console manufacturer.
Yeah, right.
And so I think you've got to look at things relatively speaking, right? Yes, it's not going to even match the PlayStation Vita in sales, I'm sure. But the fact that it got anywhere, and I'm pretty sure it's a Skunksworks project that they just made because they could, that has this kind of a success, tells me that this is actually quite a big deal that I've at least heard they're going to follow up on with something that has a very real console-like push. So I don't think you can disregard it at all.
Yeah, I'm honestly shocked at how dedicated the community is. There's a lot of products that come out like this that get, a little bit of a bigger launch than you'd expect. And then people buy it, they use it for a couple of months, and then, it goes in a drawer and collects dust. But I mean, the fact that I'm here 3 years later and I've got a channel literally about the Steam Deck that is growing, more people are coming in, and it's I always see the same names showing up, but then there's consistently new names showing up. It's it's kind of shocking even to me. I knew I was going to like it because it's what I've been waiting for forever. And I was like, oh, they finally made what I wanted. I'm just going to use this now. But to see other people get so excited about it is shocking. It's crazy.
And I don't know if it's because, you do good content and there isn't that much competition, but if I look at your channel and the views, you're getting similar views to some PlayStation or Xbox channels that are of a similar size, with an install base in the tens to hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
And it's if you want an example of the dedication, it's this shouldn't be getting that many views if it's, sold a tenth what the PS5, less than a tenth probably what the PS5 has.
Yeah, there's actually a few different channels in the space, Fan the Deck. I talk to him all the time. He's trying to branch out a little bit more into the general tech space with his opinions on stuff, and he does all these video essay style videos that I think are good. There's the Nerd Nest. He has a podcast, so Bill's doing a lot of cool stuff. But yeah, I mean, you see the same people kind of bouncing between channels, and it's funny, we all kind of talk about the same stuff, but you see people watching multiple videos from all of us, and I don't know, people are really nice in that space too. I will say, like in the comments and everything, like, you know, you can talk to people and you're not just getting like yelled at all the time, which is nice.
I will say that's how it always starts. Like,
Yeah,
you
right.
know, Demon Souls, I was early to that. Started as the most polite community on earth. And I still say it's more polite than most gaming communities for its size. But once you get to like the success of like Dark Souls 2 or 3, that's where you're getting to a point where you have more normies in, and then they'll start throwing slurs at you and you know, doing that too.
I
so
lived
I'm just
through all
warning
that
you
too, man.
If the
with
Steam
Demon
Deck
Souls,
2,
yeah, straight up. Yeah, I don't know. I've talked about this recently. I'm like, I'm happy with where it's at. I need it to grow because this is my full-time job. So I'd prefer if the space grew, obviously. But like, I like where we're at now, where everyone's just having a good time. But like, once, you know, it starts being a competition piece, it's going to just be so bad.
So I have to ask, like, what's your academic or professional background, and what got you into doing YouTube videos about the Steam Deck specifically?
So academics wise, I went to a college in the west side of Michigan called Hope College. I started in computer science. I'm so bad at math, like unreal level bad. So immediately switched out of computer science, ended up getting like a writing, history, and journalism degree from there. And I like ran the school paper and everything. And at first I started wanting to write for like, you know, the big trades like IGN and everything. And I did that. I was doing news at IGN and I was like, I do not like this. This was like something I worked so hard for. And then I didn't like it. And I don't know what made me start making videos, but everything just started falling together once I started making videos. So I started a YouTube channel. I ended up through IGN. One of the people I wrote with, their wife was like posting on Facebook that her media agency in LA had a job opening. So I was like, oh, well, I may as well. I just graduated college in like 2015, got that job, moved to LA, and I figured that'd be a good spot to be because I guess there's YouTubers out there. And then once I was out there, I worked at that media place for like 6 months. I was running the Twitter for like Lego Dimensions, that game, and you know, a bunch of Netflix shows. And then I saw this tweet go out from my friend Matt Pierce, who I've worked with forever, where they were doing like a YouTube workshop with this guy Austin Evans. And I'm like, I've watched his videos before. So I go to this YouTube workshop, and then I end up getting a job from Austin at this YouTube workshop where I end up becoming his editor. So then it's like I'm working for Austin, but I'm also around it when they're making videos and everything. And then that helped me kind of start my own channel. And I made this video called why Halloween 2 had to kill 28, or why Halloween 2018 had to kill Halloween 2. Because when they were making that movie, they got rid of the whole Halloween timeline after the first movie. That video took off, got like 200,000 views. And then Austin was like, yo, if you found something that you like talking about, make more videos on it. Started making Halloween videos, built up my channel covering the Halloween franchise. And then moving on 4 or 5 years, Austin came to me and was like, hey, remember that guy Matt who hired you? I'm investing in a company where he wants to start a PlayStation YouTube channel, and you could be the host because you love PlayStation. I'm like, great. So then that did well, and I was like hired to start that, and then it was kind of passed on to me. Like Austin got out of it and Matt got out of it. They gave it to me, and then I started Deck Ready all by myself, and here I am today. That's like a super abridged version, but that was like the last 10 years of my life.
Yeah, no, that's interesting though, because like my background is very different. I think I actually graduated the same year you did.
Oh, cool.
But you know, and I started as an engineer, and then I just started making videos like, you guys writing off Intel's problems are out of your mind. These are like systemic issues with the company, and Vega's not going to have GDDR6. That's silly. Like those are some of my first things I put out there, and then over time, it's like, I don't know, it just keeps getting bigger, and then and then you realize, oh, this actually is a thing that you can do. It's not like just, and you know, and it's interesting too, because I'm sure you sympathize with this. It's a bit different, I guess, our channels, but how do you, I love asking guests this, how do you tell people what you do when they ask? Because it's like, if you say YouTuber, they're going to think you're like doing pranks in front of Lamborghinis or something, right? Like, how do you even explain that you're like almost like a pseudo journalist? Like you can test things, you cover the news. Like, do you just say you're a YouTuber? But I guess
it's super weird because when I lived in LA, you'd say you're a YouTuber, and then
Sure.
like people would start asking you, you want to collab, blah, blah, blah. How can you help me? Then I moved back to Michigan, where I'm originally from. I'm like right by Detroit. You say you're a YouTuber and people go, what? Like they don't even have a concept. And then I say, explain. I'm like, I make videos about video games. They're like, oh, so you play games? And I'm like, well, yeah, for fun, but like it's more about this handheld PC. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I make videos in my basement. Like that's pretty much where I get to. Then you get a lot of weird like animosity from people who work like actual real jobs. Like I have friends in construction, I have friends in, accounting and marketing and stuff. And they're like, oh, it must be so nice. It must be so nice just doing nothing all day. And I'm like, I'm a one-man operation.
The hours are actually longer than you think.
Yeah. Like I have to, I do a lot. It's not hard work, but it is work. And it gets irritating sometimes when, you probably had that experience where your system that you've created to be as like plug and play as possible just completely breaks down for no reason.
Yes, I know exactly what
and
you're
then
talking
it just fixes itself. So you beat your head against the wall for nothing. That's the worst. Or when you have to rush, like when you get a product in, you go through all the trouble to get a video up as quick as possible, and then you have to rush. Rushing sucks. So like there are downsides, but like overall it's like the best job I've ever had, and I want to keep doing it. So yeah, so I explain it as best I can, but my parents think it's super cool. My wife thinks it's super cool. And then I have a few like YouTube friends I talk to all the time, like Jake Baldino runs Game Ranks. I run his personal channel with him. So I talk to him all the time. So I mostly stick to like talking about YouTube with YouTube friends. I learned the hard way with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm lucky because the stuff I talk about, my brother, who's basically my best friend, I mean, I can talk about any rumor story thing I'm preparing to do a video about, and he gets it because he's also interested in following tech news. Same with my other good friend Brock, and so on and so forth. So I have that aspect of it. But I want to say your thing about LA versus Michigan is funny because I'm from Minnesota. I went to college in Michigan, actually. I actually lived in Michigan for 6 years.
Where'd you go? Can I ask?
Michigan Tech.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah. But then I worked at GM in Royal Oak. I lived in Royal Oak. And then I actually.
Right by me. I'm in Grosse Pointe. So like, like right by Royal Oak.
So that's funny. I'm actually pretty familiar with the places you've been. But, it's Nashville isn't LA, but in many ways, it's sometimes called the LA of the South. If I say I'm a YouTuber in Minnesota when I go home for Christmas, they will, like, if it's family members who know me well, like one of them asks, so what are you doing now, Tom? And I'll say, oh, it's. Like I said last year, I'm still on YouTube. I'm like, oh, you're still doing that.
Yeah, you get that a lot.
But if I'm in Nashville, they either think I'm worth millions of dollars or I'm homeless. They just try to size you up. Like, so you're I recently got a house with my girlfriend. Depending on how big it was, that was fun. Because if we were looking at a house that honestly we probably couldn't afford, but I say I'm a YouTuber, they're like, oh, well, let me show you all of these rooms. But then, I don't know. It just depends which person you're talking to. Because,
dude, I love Nashville. I go there every year for my birthday. That's awesome. I didn't know you were from there or like living there.
Yeah, no,
I love it. I love it down there. It's great.
But all right, let's get to business here. I've looked through some of your videos.
Cool.
And one that stood out to me was your Xbox handheld reaction video because I was kind of laughing while I was watching it because I was like, oh, this is basically every reaction that I had, I think. So hopefully it's not too redundant of a conversation, but going down a list of things I saw you say, like the naming and the branding to me suggests, you said this, that they threw this together quickly. I would agree with that, and I would also add on that it's weird ROG is before Xbox.
You pointed that out on Colin's podcast, and I like immediately told my wife about it. I'm like, this guy brought up something that like I missed. Like it is bizarre that the Xbox is putting their brand second. Like why it feels like a power play when you think about it that way on Asus's part, kind of. I don't know. It was like, that is really interesting. I didn't see anyone else point that out.
And you pointed out that the name is kind of haphazard, which I want to get back to that in a second. But then just to round this out, you also said, I agree with you, that this is going to be expensive. This is going to be at least $700, I think. $1,000's easy to believe. And that the use of the Steam Deck APU for the budget version, in my opinion, is incredibly bizarre of a choice.
It feels kind of backhanded. Like they did it. Like
it shouldn't exist. I would say it's stupid.
Like I don't get why I don't know if you know way more about this. Like it's weird that Valve, if they have power to allow that, would allow that. It's just crazy.
So this is something that even to this day I can't say for 100%. But what I will say is early in my channel's life, I was aware of Van Gogh, which was the original name for the APU that the Steam Deck ended up using. And I had been kind of talking about it loosely in videos and podcasts, and my understanding was this was almost certainly meant for a Surface laptop. Now, it sounds weak for it, but if you think back, like when actually RDNA 2 came out, which was 2020, and when Zen 2 came out, which was, right, 2020? Yeah, 2020. And when RDNA, and when Zen 2 came out, which I believe was 2019, this was meant to be like the first actual RDNA 2 product, I believe, like launching mid to late 2020, and in a Surface laptop. And if you go back and look at old Surface laptops, they only had 4 cores back then, and they had a powerful graphics from like Intel Ice Lake for the time, but not, as good as this would have been. And my understanding is that Microsoft canceled this contract with them, and then Valve swooped in and said, oh, we could maybe use that in something we're thinking of releasing. Now, I don't know this 100%, but this has been the running rumors behind the scenes of people I talked to for a long time. So my suggestion would be, I don't think Valve has that much choice over it. I have to admit, there was probably some point where when they swooped in and picked it up for the Steam Deck, there was like some contract for 2 or 3 years where it could only be used with that. Like they kind of bought out AMD's project and said, but we want exclusivity. But I would imagine that would have expired, and Microsoft probably was already aware of this APU for a long time. I think what's weird about it is to just release it at all, because look, let's be honest here. The Series S has, I believe, 20 compute units, the PS5 36, PS5 Pro 60. The APUs that are out now have usually 12 to 16 compute units. This laptop that I'm testing with Strix Halo, this has 32 compute units in mine.
Okay.
Why would they release an 8 compute unit model that uses RDNA 2 with a 16 compute unit model that uses RDNA 3.5? That's just bizarre, and it's going to be so much weaker. And for the price, I think it's a complete ripoff compared to this.
If it is $600, like if they're not going to use that as a tool to subsidize it in some way, like make it.
And it's like $300, okay, but even then, I'm like, do you really want the Xbox? And again, maybe they don't care, it's after ROG in the name, but do you want the Xbox name associated with something that's probably going to underperform the Steam Deck because it's just a worse operating system with the same thing?
And they're like, you look at how people kind of talk on Twitter, and I know Twitter's like, it's kind of its own little bubble, but people still are under the impression that this is just going to like be plug and play. They log into their Xbox account and then they have a full access to everything. And I think, I don't want to say deceptive, but I think it's a little bit weird to use Gears Reloaded as the game to show it off with, because it's kind of like a redo of Gears Ultimate, which is
it's already ported to PC,
game.
So it's not actually
like that was
Xbox native game.
Like, what game is coming up that we could test? Oh, Gears. It's like not even a full remake, basically. It's like a remaster of a remaster, essentially. So like that was smart on their part, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of brick walls for people to kind of run into here when they start to unravel that not only is this very weak because it's a 3-year-old chip or more, but also, they're going to have to log in and play PC games. Saves might not transfer, unless, like if it doesn't have Play Anywhere. I feel like they need to get ahead on a lot of this marketing stuff, and they're keeping it very intentionally quiet.
I agree. Like a thing you said about the name, I don't know what the perfect name would be, but like maybe not like Xbox Go, but like some hybrid of an Xbox Windows name.
Yeah.
I guess like, probably wouldn't want to call it the Xbox Surface handheld. That just sounds too long, but like something to denote that it should feel like you're using an Xbox and it's a portable gaming device, but ultimately it isn't really an Xbox. This is something, of course, that I've leaked that people have, they can disagree if they want, but I've got publishers saying they would sue Microsoft if they tried to put their game on this handheld through an Xbox app that has backwards compatibility to like an Xbox 360 or something. Your Play Anywhere games.
The amount of work there is crazy to like talk to every publisher. I mean, some developers and publishers don't even exist anymore.
Right.
I can't imagine.
And this has 8 compute units. We keep focusing on the X version. This is 8 compute units. The Series S has 20. This is not running Series S games, guys. This is going to run games that can run on the Steam Deck if you bought it on PC. And if the fact was they got backwards, and I will say this, will they eventually get backwards compatibility to literal Xbox titles you bought? Like you could put a 360 disc into your PC and then it can actually run it someday. I hope so, because otherwise I think they're screwing over their fans. But I can promise you they're not going to get that working on an 8 compute unit handheld.
And that's not something they can throw together by the end of 2025. Like,
no. And so I think they're setting themselves up for a lot of rude awakenings later this year, where they're going to announce, like, I don't know, a $9.99 price point, and then people are going to say, okay, cool, I can play Gears Reloaded or whatever it is, but I can't play Gears of War 2 because that's, and by the way, this is very weird to me. They still have never ported Gears of War 2 or 3 to PC. It makes absolutely no sense. I love those games
so much. I literally played 3 on my Series X with my buddies. That's the last time I used my Series X, was last August, a year ago, to play Gears 3. And I was like, dang, it'd be nice if I could play this on, my great handheld that I have an ROG Ally X laying around. I played Gears Ultimate on it and it was pretty good. So, but no ports for that.
So I have to ask, I mean, you're in this community. What is the reaction from Steam Deck gamers? Are they excited for this, or how have they reacted to it?
So just going off my comment section, which, is like a fraction of the audience, but there were a few people who were like, oh, I'm really excited about this because I have a Series X. And even if I can't play my Xbox games, it's nice that, I sub to Game Pass and I'll be able to use Play Anywhere and transfer my saves. So a very similar way that I use the Steam Deck with, like, I have a gaming PC. I play the same games. Like, I hop between Elden Ring on both handheld and desktop. And then there were other people that were like, this thing's going to be so expensive. How is it any different than what I can get now with the ROG Ally X or Legion Go S? And like, how great is that Xbox full screen experience going to be? Because they didn't really show it off. They let people use it and then talk about it without B-roll, which is kind of weird. And apparently when people would try to tab through, the different menus or anything, they'd grab it and switch out.
That's the first thing I would do. I'd be like
me too.
What it does.
Yeah, totally. I'd be like all over that thing. So it seemed like there were a few people who were really excited if they already use Game Pass, because it just makes their Game Pass life a little bit easier. But people who aren't in that ecosystem are like, I'm going to get back to my Steam Deck. Like, I already got this ecosystem they're creating 3 years ago.
Yeah. And I mean, what I would hope they're going to do is, and this is something I discussed with Dan on my podcast, like, actually some of this was his idea too, like, what I hope they would do is it has 2 booting modes. And I don't know how you do it, but maybe you can make it, you press the Xbox button, it boots into Windows. You hold down the Xbox button, it boots into Xbox mode. And it is Windows kind of, but it is truly a different method of booting into it that, like, totally locks down background tasks. It's more efficient. Maybe there's some pseudo way to launch Microsoft apps. Like, if you really want to, like, command search for Word or Chrome or something, you could do that, but it really does just launch into this app and try to turn off everything else and be as efficient as Linux or something. Like, and then through that app, which is really its own version of an operating system, they try to add some version of backwards compatibility eventually with Xbox titles. Again, I'm going to say this to anyone listening, I don't know how you could ever get those working on an 8 compute unit model. And then what are you going to do? Tell devs they need to patch all of their games for now 2 more versions of a thing in addition to the Series X, the Series S, the Xbox. Like, you're telling devs to do way too much work to expect them to try to get an 8 compute unit model to work. But hopefully that could be the platform where they start working on that sort of stuff. And I think you said this too in your video, and I worry about this. Or is it just an app, that turns off a couple things and doesn't really fundamentally make it work the same way SteamOS does? You know what I mean?
That's what it seemed like from what it was. I don't know. I didn't get hands-on with it. And I talked to a few people who did, and it seems like they, like, on the Asus and Xbox side, they went in knowing that people would want to mess around with it more, so they made sure everything was very quick. Like, if you played Gears, they gave you one where Gears was already running and the game was paused. If you wanted to see
you couldn't even open it.
The app, they held one in front of you that had the full screen experience on, so it was very tailored. And that's kind of what led me down the path of they're throwing this together, because I don't think they saw the article like 2 weeks before that was like, whoa, SteamOS on the Legion Go S is like 20% faster or whatever. But I feel like they got a tip or something from Lenovo who were like, hey, we've got the same hardware, it's running way better on one than the other, what's going on? And then they were like, trying to get everything together because they realized they had a reason to for once.
Yeah, there's also that rumor that came out that there was some Xbox handheld they were working on that was an actual Xbox, and that got sidelined at the same time that they did this. I think I don't know, maybe this is an exclusive here, but I actually talked to someone at AMD that said that does totally exist. And it ran ARM, actually. It was actually an ARM APU that they were trying to make backwards compatible with Xbox, but that they canceled that. And so or at least they've put it to the side, and who knows if that means it's really canceled. And if that's actually true, I don't know. That would, again, like, they're working on a handheld that's a true backwards compatible Xbox, and they seemingly rapidly pivot into just paying Asus to make something that looks like the same thing. That, to me, tells me there's something here where they don't have confidence in launching consoles that much anymore, right? Or why would they do that?
Right. And yeah, you look at the space, like the Steam Deck did well for what, it is. I don't know what Valve's expectations were, and they say they were satisfied. So like, that's all that really matters to me. But like, you look at the other ones, no one's ever really shared a lot of numbers, which tells you it's not doing amazing. And it's not the biggest market share around, people looking for PC handheld. So maybe they were like, we'll test the waters with our Asus ROG Xbox Ally, whatever, and see how it goes. And then maybe we'll start making our own handheld. But like, who knows if they're even going to make hardware going forward.
Right. And that's the thing, is like, we'll eventually get to this. Obviously, I leaked something called Zen 6 Magnus, which to me seems like it's either the next gen Xbox or PlayStation, or who knows, maybe a next gen Valve consoles. It's one of those three. So maybe there is something going on with Xbox truly making a next gen piece of hardware. But I don't know. Well, I've always heard they're working on one. I might have proof that they are in a final design phase for it. But even if they are, I still am like, everything they're doing publicly tells me they don't want to, right? And so I always worry that there's going to be a rug pull at the end, like there was with the Xbox handheld. That's what I worry about with Xbox, is prospects of launching a next-gen console.
I'd love to see it. I
want it done right, though, right?
Yeah. I've always wanted a Windows handheld, and then I got the Steam Deck, and now I couldn't care less. Like, that's where I'm at with it personally. Like, I had the ROG Ally X, and I was just kind of bummed because if it came out a year earlier, I would have been really into it. But once I got the Steam Deck, I was like, oh, this is just exactly what I want and how I feel like it should be. So I want it to come out just because I like new tech. That's the perspective I'm coming at it positively.
Yeah, for me on their handheld right now, the Xbox one, that is, or the Asus one, depending on how you look at it. I just hope that this thing where they optimize Windows is real. Like that's what I'm really hoping for. In fact, let me throw this in here. Shoot, I cut off the name. Well, I forgive whoever sent in this question, but I accidentally cut it off when I was putting it together. But the question is, I've been a long-time Windows power user, but recently switched to Linux Bazite on Strix Point laptop and was amazed by the performance and battery improvements. 15 to 20% better gaming and 2x the battery life with Proton and Wine and a Windows VM. The transition was smooth. Given how bad Windows 11 has become, do you think gaming-focused Linux distros like Bazite and SteamOS will start actually pulling users away from Microsoft? Will enthusiasts lead the shift, or are mainstream users catching on too? And this is something that I talked about, I'm sure you heard, with Colin when he was on Broken Silicon, which is there's a real crisis going on at Microsoft where they're losing hundreds of millions of users, and you're seeing a lot of tech-focused channels like Level 1 Techs, I would recommend, is one that brings this up a lot, where he'll take actually the same laptop I just showed off to the side here, and it runs Windows 11 with this powerful Strix Halo APU. He installs SteamOS on it, and he's like, all my games run 20% faster, even the ones that aren't native to Linux. That's just one proxy for this optimization and performance problem Windows seems to have right now. But has this worked for you at all as a Trojan horse, where you've used Steam Deck and you're like thinking to yourself, I don't know, someday maybe I will just start using Linux or SteamOS or something instead, because this is convincing me that maybe Windows maybe I don't have to use it forever.
Yeah, I actually built a desktop with a what freaking card is it? It's got all older parts in it. I'm not well versed on the AMD tech, but like it's got a 5-year-old GPU that it's the one everyone compares to the PS5. I don't know why I'm blanking on it right now.
Oh, there's a few 6700 XT, 6800. What? Oh, and 5700 XT.
Yeah, 5700 XT.
Okay.
It's got a decent CPU. I put a terabyte SSD in it. I threw SteamOS on it. It's great. It struggles with Unreal Engine 5, blah, blah, blah. But for the games I played a lot of Elden Ring Night Rain on my TV with it. Excellent experience. And I love it. And I'm in a little bit of a different scenario where like all of my work stuff I do on my MacBook. Like I use
Right.
Final Cut. I
My
write all my
editor's the same.
videos on that. So that's like my desktop. When I'm on this PC that I'm like doing this podcast on, it's like literally 4 games. That's all it exists for. So it's a Razer Blade with a NVIDIA card. So if I could get SteamOS on this, I would have partitioned it a long time ago. But if you do Bazite, I guess you can get it up and running, but the game mode doesn't work very well. So once I can do it, I will. But in the meantime, that's why I'd like to see Microsoft actually get a version of Windows that works well for gaming, because then it's a win for me either way.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that continues to evolve. I've heard some people in my community point this out to me over and over, like recently, that AMD being in the Steam Deck running Linux, and Valve actually being a real multi-billion-dollar company pushing Linux forward has meant that if you want to use Linux, which is just better than Windows when it comes to efficiency, AMD is now like built for that. And to use it, and like Nvidia really, and Intel has really fallen behind in Linux usage, because AMD is now, every developer on Linux that makes games is now like, oh, well, we're going to need the Steam Deck version to work because that's the main Linux gaming setup. So this has been a huge boost for AMD as well. It's interesting to watch that.
Yeah, I love that PC. It's like totally plug and play. It's crazy that, it's like, whoa, it feels weird that you're putting SteamOS on a USB stick and installing it onto a PC. But once you do that, it's exactly like a Steam Deck, but blown up on my big TV, and it works great. So I have no complaints. I'd prefer to use that for everything, but some of the games that I like playing need more power than the GPU I have in it. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to spend more money, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's been great. I did it right when they released that working one for the ROG Ally and the Legion Go.
This piece of content is brought to you by CDkeyoffer.com. CDkeyoffer.com is really the best place to go to get reasonable pricing on Microsoft software, whether that's Windows 11 operating systems or Office products like the ones that I installed on this new Strix Halo laptop that I was testing while I made this ad. You see, I actually use CDkeyoffer.com. I've used them many times. My family members use them. My friends use them when they're building new PCs. And that's because they've been a reliable sponsor of Moore's Law is Dead for years now. And so if you're looking to get, say, a new laptop, or you just finally want to get a legitimate key of one of the latest Office products on your desktop during back to school, use CDkeyoffer.com's offer codes Broken Silicon to save 25% on all Microsoft products. And then actually you can also use offer code DieShrink to save 3% on everything else on their website, like games as well. Once again, I want to thank CDkeyoffer.com for sponsoring this content, like all the other content that they've sponsored, and for making it easy for me to get a good price on Office on my new laptop. Joe writes in, says, "Hi Tom and Deck Ready. Microsoft is clearly worried about SteamOS. What features do you think Valve needs to bring to desktop to make SteamOS a viable Windows replacement? Do you think SteamOS will be ready for desktop in time, by the way, for me to avoid going back to Windows 11? So Microsoft is ending Windows 10 support at the end of this year."
I saw that, yeah.
So that's what he's referencing for everyone listening. But yeah, so what do you think Valve's next? Because my dream is not only that the ROG Xbox makes Windows work better, but that SteamOS gains so much prominence that it really kicks Microsoft in the ass in a way no one has. Like, what do you think Valve needs to do to get to that next level, besides kind of just being a niche oddity or interest for gamers like you who mess with it, but like something where you're like seeing, like, you order an HP laptop, an option is SteamOS or something?
Yeah, they got to figure out this anti-cheat stuff. Like, that's continuing to be the biggest problem, where, I mean, the average person, when they're going to build a PC or whatever, I think the first game they're going to check if it works is GTA Online, because everyone, for some reason except me, plays hours and hours of GTA Online. GTA Online doesn't work, and the problem is it worked for a really long time. And then Rockstar woke up one day and was like, kernel level anti-cheat, we don't want to support the Steam Deck anymore. Same goes for like Battlefield 1 and a lot of the EA games. They retroactively add this stuff in, and Valve like says that they're like, they're like, we're working on it. It's like, you need to be more, pointed about what you're doing. Like, are you going to Rockstar and pointing out that, that was in the top 10 most played games on the Steam Deck forever and still is, even without multiplayer support? Or like Destiny 2. That was the game when the Steam Deck was announced. I was big in Destiny. I was like, oh, I'm so excited. That doesn't work for some reason. So I feel like that's such a barrier that a lot of these bigger online games are either a crapshoot on if they'll work. They'll work maybe for some indeterminate amount of time until a developer breaks it, or they just don't work at all. And it is nice. You start to see more developers like Embark saying, nope, the finals is going to work in perpetuity on the Steam Deck. And there are more devs all the time saying that they'll support it, but it's not all of them and it's not the biggest game. So I feel like that's a major thing they need to figure out, like ASAP, because it continually comes up.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is like, on the one hand, you have the GTA devs like, hey, we're focusing on GTA 6. This thing's GTA 5 was out like a decade before the Steam Deck even came out.
Yeah.
But who really cares? Or is it the Valve people going, I mean, if they don't want to support us, we're not going to push them? Because I would have to wonder if at some point the thing that's going to force devs to switch this over is if Valve announces a Steam Deck 2 and a Steam home console, which from what I'm hearing, they might be working on something quite powerful. And then that is like, gets a ton of fanfare, a ton of press, and it like makes like, like DICE look at Battlefield 6 and go, oh, because I think sometimes this is truly what happens. I think we forget that people who make games are also people who play games and are enthusiasts, and they see that, and the devs are like, oh, I want to play it on the Steam console, or I want to do this too. And it seems like it's getting a lot of press, so maybe we need to make sure Battlefield 6 supports this so that we get our players on there. Like, I almost wonder if it will take like another iteration of Steam consoles that gets to like 10-20 million units sold, where that's where you get to, the term undeniable. You are undeniable, they have to support you. Like, I almost wonder if that's what it is.
That's kind of the line of thinking I go down. And your reaction to GTA is so funny, because that's how I feel. I'm like, I mean, it's like a 10-year-old game. I don't play it. I know like a lot of people do, but like, is it really that important? And people are like, yes, it is so important that I play GTA Online on my Steam Deck. But the weird thing is Red Dead Online still works. So they like,
what?
Yeah, like that works fine. And then they're adding new content to it, and everyone kind of assumed they would break it, but they didn't. So it's just inconsistent. And I completely agree. I think they just need enough Steam Decks out there, or Steam consoles, to where they can like kind of strong arm it on the devs and be like, look, we got this many people who want to play your game and will buy it and spend money in it. So support them. But like for 4 million people or whatever, that's nothing to them, I'd assume. So they're like, whatever.
What do you know why I assume you mean Red Dead Redemption 2 Online? Like, does that do a different form of anti-cheat?
They both use BattleEye, and there is a Linux version of BattleEye that you can like choose to allow your game to work with. And just with GTA, they specifically block it. They say it only will work with the Windows version of BattleEye, not the Linux one. But Red Dead works with both. And like you ask Rockstar, and then they go, that's just how it is, bro. Sorry.
Well, it's the same thing with like a 60 frames per second patch for like Red Dead Redemption 2 on either the Xbox or the PlayStation. It's like, what in the hell is going on? Patch this game, man. Like,
yeah, they probably just want to they probably don't want to do it because they want to have reserve the option to be able to sell it again on PS5, and that's like one more box you could put on the back to check. That's like 60 FPS now. Upgrade to the PS5 native version or whatever.
And so that further convinces me then that Red Dead Redemption 2 is like a newer game, so maybe that grew a bigger well, you said GTA was ahead of it though, right? Eventually, so that's not really true, but they have such a huge, maybe it's percentage wise, like Red Dead Redemption 2, like, like 10%, 5% on Steam Deck, and then with GTA it was 1, and they have a new GTA coming out also. And so they're maybe they're thinking, we're about to replace it in a couple of years anyways with something that will last for 15 years till the next GTA. Red Dead Redemption will be here though for 10 years until the next one, so we have to maybe support that one too. I have to assume it's something with that though, because that's just odd otherwise.
It's always weird. It's never like what you'd expect. So I think that's a big thing they need to figure out. And then I think they need to do a better job like telling people that like, yeah, you can install Discord on this. It's very easy to do, but like a lot of people never interact with the desktop side of SteamOS. So they like don't even know there's the like Linux Discover store or whatever where they can get Discord and then just add it to Steam, blah, blah, blah. So just like, you know, getting maybe not knocking down the wall between desktop and game mode, but like making it more apparent that you can even go into desktop mode, because a lot of people don't know that. Like a lot of my friends who have Steam Decks are like, what? You can, there's a whole desktop? And it's like, yeah, you can get like EMU Deck and it's awesome. So those are like the two major things I would say. But as far as using it, I mean, the reason I like it is because as someone who started on console and like had a PC forever, like since I was in high school, I've had a gaming PC. I've definitely shifted more towards PC since I got my Steam Deck, because I like the ability to play on like the same save on both devices.
Yes.
That's like a huge win for me, but I'm like, whoa, this is so easy. It's great.
Yeah, so, it was a huge deal for me back in the day, especially when I discovered like my laptop could boot up the same game, even if it's at a weaker resolution, that I could on my desktop on the go. And like, you know, I'm on a business trip and I know I'm playing, what was it, like Dark Souls 3 in 480p at like 40 frames per second or something, but I am doing it on a business trip. I didn't have to bring some big old desktop with me. Planet 9 writes in and says, hi, Tom and Deck Ready. How do you think the Steam Deck verified things should change as the SteamOS landscape grows and evolves, such as being more general and AMD APU verified, or staying very tight with Valve hardware? Yeah, I imagine that you kind of already answered. Like you're hoping eventually it's everything, right?
Yeah, I'd love that. And they kind of talk about it like they're working on it, you know, and Bazite has support for NVIDIA now. It's just in beta is how they say it. The verification system is so busted on the Steam Deck. Like they need to get rid of that unsupported option, because unsupported means the developer just hasn't added any input at all. Like, and they have an unknown tag, but so many games that work completely fine get the unsupported tag because they don't hear from the dev or something. And it's like, just get rid of it. Figure it out. I like how they do it with Legion Go S though, where it's like runs on SteamOS, check, does not run on SteamOS X. Like that's probably how the whole thing should evolve for every SteamOS device. Like you figure it out how to do the settings or whatever, but you can be sure it'll boot up or not.
Yeah, there should be more clarity on that. All right. Speaking of AMD APUs, I have to ask you, as someone who exclusively covers them, what do you think about recent leaks out of this channel about how much like the AMD APU family is expanding? Because I have a question too that maybe you could answer before that. Like, I think it's just so interesting, especially like I've been following PC hardware very closely for decades. I've been arguing with the comment sections before I even started this YouTube channel. And like, I remember when the market kind of just changed overnight, when it's just like, boom, PlayStation, Xbox uses AMD, Steam Deck uses AMD. Everything just starts using all these APUs out of nowhere. And then there's a couple on laptop. And now there's like 3 or 4 on laptop for different performance levels. I mean, I leaked something called Magnus that has 11 cores and seemingly a graphics portion that's as powerful as a high-end graphics card. And yet I've also got these things I've leaked called Bumblebee, where it's like this tiny quad core. Like, what do you think about all of these rumors coming out of like just tons and tons of these like unified chips, some powerful, some not?
I think it's cool because when I built my PC in high school, I didn't even know what AMD was. Like it was NVIDIA and Intel. All my buddies did NVIDIA and Intel. And now I'm talking to people and people are just defaulting to AMD because, you can find it, which is a huge benefit to AMD. And it is interesting to see everyone kind of consolidating down to where the PS5 uses AMD, Xbox uses AMD. Then you got Nintendo doing their own thing with NVIDIA and they get DLSS, which bums me out. But I like that AMD is becoming more commonplace because that will only help it get better to me, theoretically, from my like 1,000 feet up analysis. I don't know a lot of the technicals of it, but I've been really impressed and satisfied with AMD, because you'd always, like when I got into college or like when I moved out and started working with Austin, you'd always hear these horror stories about like specific games specifically not working with AMD cards or CPUs, and they'd have all these problems. And in the past few years, anecdotally, I just haven't heard that nearly as much, like if at all. which is cool. So it seems like it's getting better as it expands outwards, which is not what you'd expect, but it's cool that that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even when it comes to DLSS, I'm sure you've seen to a degree, FSR4 seems to be getting very, very close to the same thing, and
I like that.
And it's this. I'm kind of curious what you think about this. Is it's so weird, but interesting. I mean, that like you also see like AMD's work and Sony's work on PSSR like converging, and like them talking about bringing FSR4 through an entirely different means of running it, but the same overall quality supposedly to the PS5 Pro, which would then mean if they can put it on PS5 Pro, eventually they might be able to put it on the Steam Deck and other things as well. And like it's like this synergy between them. It's it's really interesting. How do you think about? Well, let me see. I can probably skip ahead to this question too. Fred Berger writes in and says, sort of responding to Sony and the AMD friendship discussed in Broken Silk on 318, do you think part of that is due to shared experiences and having terrible business deals with other companies, i.e. Sony and Nintendo, Sony and Nvidia? Yeah, I think there was a lot of, I will say this, I don't know what you know about this, but like there's often bad blood between companies after they work with Nvidia or Microsoft, by the way. And I've seen like Valve working closely with Sony on some things. It's very interesting, this like Sony, Valve, AMD thing that's going where they all seem to be working together. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that as you've seen that evolve too, because it must stick out to you, like seeing like one of the leaders of AMD just with Mark Cerny, like we're working together on graphics cards. I've never seen that before in my life.
And it's crazy when you compare that to how they talked about the new Xbox stuff, where they used all this tricky language, and instead of saying we're working directly with Xbox to develop a chip together, it's like we're going to be working with Xbox to make more PCs or something. Like it was super bizarre.
We're going to evolve past custom hardware, which means it's not custom, because that's what that sounds like to me.
I was like, that's crazy that everyone kind of missed that. And then you've got, Mark Cerny and AMD, like they're just having fun in the corner. And then on the Steam side, it's crazy how much effort Sony puts in to like not only getting their games to work well on the Steam Deck. Like there are a few that don't.
Oh, that's a good point. See, I don't follow that. PC. So like Sony games tend to work well on the Steam Deck. You're saying,
and they do the most marketing specifically for the Steam Deck out of all these big publishers. Like they make a huge point to get the verified graphic on the store page, which is interesting. Like Square Enix does it too for some reason, but Sony's like the main one doing it. And Sony, as far as publishers go, they have the most official Steam Deck boot intro videos on the like Point Shop than anyone. So you can get them for like Last of Us 1 and 2, Days Gone, I think Ghost of Tsushima. Like they go ahead and make these with their studios and just throw them on the Point Store on Steam. And it's like, why are you guys like working together? Like if Sony's working on their own handheld that's going to run PS5 and PS4 games, like why are you guys such good friends? But it seems like something's working between Sony and Valve, and I like it. I just wish Sony would implement some way to transfer your saves between the PS5 version and
I'd buy Helldivers 2 again if I could run it on Steam or something.
And dude, Helldivers is the one that pisses me off so much, because on the PlayStation blog day one, they said it had cross save. And then like I bought it on both, and then they go, whoops, that was a mistake. It's like, I bought the game twice, Doc. Like now I have to stick to one save. But yeah, I would love to have that save transferring, because I'd be fine to buy.
Like, what's the point
twice.
of saying it has PlayStation Network if it doesn't transfer your save? That's like the only thing I would actually want PlayStation Network for.
And it's weird that Sony gets so much flack for the login stuff. Like I agree with the flack, but like Xbox makes you log in when you play Forza Horizon, which is my most played probably game on PC, and you get nothing for it. Like you can't transfer your saves between your Xbox and your Steam version. It's like, why am I doing this? I don't understand. But yeah, I like the partnership between Valve and Sony, because I really like Sony's games, and I like how much effort has gone into getting them running like on this handheld. Like God of War is great, Ghost of Tsushima is great. Helldivers is a little bit of a mess. Like you can kind of get it to 30 FPS, but I wouldn't recommend it on the Steam Deck. But for the most part, Sony's done a really good job getting their games working on the deck. And Microsoft's games, ironically, are the ones I have the most problems with. Like Forza Horizon 5, it's a coin flip on if a new update is going to break it completely on Linux, and it just runs worse on Linux. It's like one of the few games that runs like really poorly compared to how it runs on Windows for some reason. So I hope Sony continues with that going forward, because as far as like the console publishers go, I play their games the most.
Yeah. To something you threw out, which I started thinking about, we were talking like, why does Sony put all this effort into arguably a competitor's platform? I think number one, they don't have their games on the Switch 2. And so this is their way to get into handheld gaming. And I think if they can, that's a way to have a space in the mobile gaming arena, is
Mhm.
to make sure it's on Steam and also make sure it runs well on the Steam Deck. But in addition to that, I think there's a thing too where if if you put a gun up to, PlayStation's metaphorical head and you said, who do you want to exceed more, Valve or Microsoft? They're going to go, Valve,
Yeah.
because they less directly compete with us. And so even if they do compete with us, they do less than Microsoft. The faster we can make Valve kick Microsoft's ass is the faster we get Microsoft to fuck out of console gaming to defend Windows. And so I think you could argue they're just supporting a proxy war between two of their competitors.
And I'm fine with that, honestly. I like, and if you look at Sony and Valve going back to the PS3 days, they did that weird partnership with Portal 2, or if you bought a PS3 copy like on disc, you also got a Steam copy for free, which was interesting. And then that went nowhere, but they've always kind of been like a little friendly with each other, which I like. And yeah, like it's from a YouTube perspective, I was really excited when my Steam Deck channel started taking off because I could put more time and energy into videos on it. And I was like, I don't have to worry about console war stuff. And then like literally within 3 months, Microsoft's like, yep, we're out of the console game. We're going to start making, custom PCs that run the Xbox app, and we're going after Valve. And I'm like, I can't escape it. It's crazy.
Yeah. And then what else did I want to say about that? When it comes to Sony making a handheld that will eventually obviously compete with the Steam Deck, I don't know what Sony thinks about that, but I wonder what you think. I think this is a theory I've had for a while. Something that Sony probably noticed when they saw the Steam Deck launch is they noticed something about the Steam Deck that is a bigger deal than just consoles competing, which was having a handheld version of PC gaming made people more likely to buy the Steam version of a game, even if it's like free on the Epic Store. Now, obviously, part of the reason is the Epic Store is cancer. I mean, it runs your games worse. I haven't honestly opened it, I think, for years, but when I did, it was so slow. Like I got the Outer Worlds for free, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I'm like, I still never really played it because I just don't want to open that launcher. And then another thing you can do to tip the scale in that direction for people deciding which launcher to buy their stuff on is you can say, hey, if you get this on Steam, you know it's going to run on the Steam Deck most likely. So just pay the extra $20, and in the future you can do that. I think that's something PlayStation's realizing is like, it's not always about the direct competition with your competitor. Having the handheld version of your console is about keeping your eyes on a PlayStation longer and like giving more options. And so they know that there's going to be people that buy a Steam Deck and buy a PC. There's going to be people that buy a PlayStation. But if they have a handheld version, yes, they're less likely to go to the Steam Deck, but you're probably getting your enthusiasts to double dip and buy more DLC more often if they have a way to truly play it on the go.
Yeah, and you can play it like from the leaks. The goal with the PS handheld is to be able to play PS5 games. So like people spent PS4, PS5 generation building up a digital library. I mean, that's an easy sell to say, hey, all these games you already have in your library, you can just play them and your saves will transfer. It's the same account, blah, blah, blah. Like, I feel like they're probably aware that those people are their target audience for the handheld.
Yeah. And so I guess let me ask you, like, what do you think about PlayStation handheld rumors in general? Like, I don't know when you even first heard about them, what you want out of it, and how you see that as both something maybe interesting in its own right, but something that might compete with the Steam Deck. And like, what would you get that and just have both, or like, what do you think about it?
If I like spread out my library of games, I'd say in the PS4 generation, it was probably like 75% PlayStation, 25% Steam, and then now it's definitely split down the middle, 50-50. Like if a game works on the Steam Deck, I buy it on Steam, like no questions asked. If it's something
right, so this is a way to maybe try to get you to not do that, right?
Yeah, definitely. But I would definitely buy a PlayStation handheld because I just have an affinity for those. I love the PSP. I was a huge Vita fan. I still am. I play like emulated games on it all the time. I think it's great hardware, and I like what Sony does with hardware. And if they're not going to allow me to transfer saves, it would be nice to play these games that I'm skipping on Steam that I might not have finished earlier, and have my save I can pick back up with on this PlayStation handheld. And it feels less like cheating to me to play like a PlayStation handheld and a Steam Deck than it does like a Steam Deck and an ROG Ally. It just feels weird playing an ROG Ally and a Steam Deck, but I feel like they're different enough because I have a Switch 2. I haven't had a game to play on it until I guess Donkey Kong, but I enjoy having multiple handhelds. I'm like a big handheld fan in general.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that, like, assuming the price is good as well, the thing that just is alluring to me about a PlayStation handheld is I play a lot of games on PC. Obviously, I also play a lot of games on PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
And just the idea that, like, I mean, ultimately, if you think about how much money you spend on games a year, the console itself really is a fraction of the price.
Yeah.
And like just being able to also have a PlayStation handheld that if I'm going on a trip and I want to, unless they add cross save, and I want to play Helldivers 2, or I want to keep playing a good one right now that's only on PlayStation will be Death Stranding 2.
Yep.
I just know that I have this option that I can throw in my bag. And then especially if I can plug it into a TV and even just game 1080p 60, which I would assume you probably could.
Yeah.
That to me is just really enticing as another option, you know? So I think it's common sense.
It'd probably be a little bit sleeker, a little bit smaller than something like the Steam Deck 2. Like, you know, it's not as cumbersome, I would assume, whatever they're working on. Because like if you look at the Switch 2, like if you put them top down, they're roughly the same size, but the Switch 2 is a lot thinner, you know. It takes up less space in your bag. So like I wouldn't be too mad if I was playing Donkey Kong on my Switch 2 and Elden Ring on my Steam Deck and I wanted to throw both in my backpack when I'm traveling. Like that's how I'd like the PlayStation 1 to end up, as like a cool little thing I can always have if I want it.
Yeah, and I kind of want to talk to you about that as well. Like I haven't really been thinking about it that much. I mean, I leaked a year or something ago. There is or maybe 2 years by now. There is a PlayStation handheld. All I knew is it exists.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that it's smaller than you'd think. I mean, already again, I keep bringing up, you know, Strix Halo. I mean, obviously, I have it over here in like a standard size laptop. But I also know that there's apparently a handheld version of it coming out with this 40 compute units. So more compute units than even in the PS5, you know, and apparently it's like this big or something, and it's a normal PSP Go looking handheld. Now, I'm going to guess that thing's going to be throttled a lot by power consumption. But if right now they can fit that into something that's meant for a normal size laptop, and I'm sure it'll be a $2,000 handheld too, like I have a bespoke APU from AMD and Sony working together that really just targets PS5-ish performance. Even if it's a PS6 variant, it'd probably be a weaker version, kind of like the Series S is comparable to a 1X in performance. Like, I have no reason to not believe on 3 or 2 nanometer in a year or 2 from now, or a year or 3 from now, they could get this down to maybe half the power consumption of the Steam Deck, or at least the lower power consumption modes, and try to make it smaller. But like, how much do you think that really matters? That's what I want. I thought the Vita was the perfect size to actually still be portable. I agree. But I don't think it's going to be that small. It's just too powerful.
I don't think it can be, but I'd say if it's within the realm of Steam Deck, that's fine. Everyone who's never held a Steam Deck acts like, you know, it's the size of
a microwave.
PS5. Yeah. But once you hold it, you're like, oh, I get why it looks like that. Like, it's a very comfortable handheld. And if you hold an ROG Ally, you're like, ow, this thing's sharp and it's weirdly oblong and I don't like it. But then when you hold the Steam Deck, it's like holding a controller, and the like, people don't love that the sticks are at the top and are symmetrical with each other, but when you're using it's very natural. Like, everything it feels like they actually tested it and, you know, took feedback and worked it into this good shape. So if Sony can stay in that size realm, or maybe a little smaller, that'd be great. Anything bigger, I'm like, don't do that. I don't know why. I'm like, I don't think it's that big of a deal all the way around.
Mm-hmm. So because I don't know, I mean, I've seen a Steam Deck. I think my friend actually has an ROG Ally, and I saw it, and I've seen them in Best Buy too on display. And I'm like, doof, this is enormous. Oh my god!
You can hear them when you go in the store, because they stay on, and the fans are so loud in that white one. It's like a magnet. It's like, you're like, what is that?
It's a laptop fan being very loud. That's what that is. But yeah, so I think I kind of agree, because there's no way it's smaller than this Steam Deck in my opinion. I just don't think the technology is really there for that. But I think it's an interesting though. So you think if it's like even in between the Steam Deck 2 and the Steam Deck, I always do this, the Steam Deck and the Switch 2.
Yeah.
If it's between that, that's more than small enough in your opinion.
Yeah. That seems about right. I really like the Steam Deck. Everyone loves the Legion Go because it has a bigger screen. But like I've been using the Legion Go S and I'm like, yeah, it's awesome that it has a 1200p screen, but 90% of the games I've played on it run great at 800p. So like I prefer they just use an 800p screen at that point. You know, like it's cool having that HD screen, but I don't use it all that much.
Yeah, my guess would be the PlayStation, if it's based on the some PlayStation 6S APU, I would guess the most would be 1440p, but you know, 1080p is probably more than enough. Like just to make it easy and frankly to give you a better battery life, so it's not trying to run it at a high resolution. Then you can really, I mean, you'll tell the difference, but then you really, I should say, need to have a good gaming experience at that size. Right. I have to ask too. Do you have any thoughts on the Switch 2?
So I bought it to do my video, just like get quick first impressions, expecting to really like it. And then I used it for a little bit and I was like, I kind of want to return it. And then I just let it sit too long, got outside of the window. So I haven't really used it all that much because I was waiting for Donkey Kong, and then I'm like deep in an Elden Ring playthrough right now. So I'm not even going to get to Donkey Kong, but it's cool. It definitely, I can see why, you know, there was a lot of hype for a week. And then everyone's like, oh, it's just like a better Switch. And then they moved on because that's really what it feels like at the end of the day. I've had a lot of issues with it though. When I was doing my comparison between Cyberpunk on the Steam Deck and the Switch 2, it kept crashing. Like the game would just completely lock up and the console would restart. And I was doing it in handheld quality mode. And I was like, this is crazy that this keeps happening. And I thought it was like one spot. I move on, it happens again. It hard crashes the console. And I guess that's been happening with other games too. So it's weird because I had always heard these leaks that they were sitting on it for so long. Like it's just been ready. And then it comes out and it's like buggy as hell. I'm like, what's going on?
To be fair, I've seen this before. Like Nvidia's recent graphics cards, I heard could have launched summer last year, even though they came out January. And so I thought, well, these are probably going to be the most polished things you've ever seen. And this is like the first Nvidia generation where people are like, what the hell is going on? So I don't know. The joke I make is that Jensen Huang at Nvidia like handed Nintendo this chip in like 2022. And then Nintendo went, oh shit, we got to finish this thing, guys. Like, like forgot to do their homework. I don't know how else I don't know how else you explain this, because that's what I've heard across the board, to the degree where like I was trying to get one for my girlfriend, but now me and her are on the same page of like, hey, if we see one, we'll get it. She's got an old Switch Lite, so that's showing its age by now, like crazy. So is my wife. But it almost feels like it needs another year to be done. And by then we're like, well, will the OLED version be about to come out that actually lets you do VRR over the dock and like fixes all these weird real oversights? So I don't know. It's selling well right now is my take. And so what the hell do I know? Why would they take my advice on anything? But there's just a part of me that goes, I can't help but like sit here and go, the fact that people are comparing this to the PS5 Pro is like bad, because it's not a Pro. This thing's like 10 times stronger than a Switch. And if all people do is see it as the Pro, then I'd worry it'd be like the PS4 Pro, where it like sells out for a year and then that's it and doesn't sell that much more. But, you know, someone's going to clip this in a year and say it sold 50 million copies and I'm an idiot. And but there's just a part of me where I'm like, I just doesn't seem like the enthusiasm is behind it that was behind it before. I just can't help but think maybe it's just the desperate people that are desperate for any Nintendo console that isn't this old Switch, and that's why it's selling well at first.
Yeah, I bought it. I kept it around basically to play games that I like bought Tears of the Kingdom, saw how it ran on the Switch, and I was like, later. And then I did. My
girlfriend did that with one of them. She played it and she's like, this is unplayable. Like, and she is not a hardware nerd. And the fact that she was like, the frame rate seems bad, you know, maybe it's some influence from me seeing like me always gaming at 120 frames a second, but like if even her thinks that the frame rate's bad, that's not a good sign.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's what happened to me. I was like, I'll wait. So I have games saved up for it when I finish Elden Ring. So probably in 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Knowing Elden Ring. This piece of content is brought to you by the fans that support the independent journalism of Moore's Law is Dead on Patreon. And it does need supporting, from personal attacks from tech elites that get mad when we tell you that they are lying to gamers and their own shareholders, to legal attacks from mega corporations that cost the team time and money. This is expensive and often very stressful work. And it's work that doesn't depend on access journalism, nor depend on NDAs or agreements that would sanitize our opinions and hold us back. No, nothing holds us back, and we are independently funded, and we use said funding to do things like pay professional renderers to show you products before they come out so that the sources that provided us the original pictures don't get in trouble. Or we also create bonus content like Die Shrinks, where you have videos and interviews coming out multiple times a month exclusively to reward our patrons with the extra content that we know they would like to see, whether it's inside scoops or more in-depth conversation and stuff that we just know wouldn't profit if we put it out publicly, but it doesn't need to profit for our fans on Patreon because it is self-funded. And so if you want any of that bonus content, or you want to support the independent journalism of Moore's Law is Dead, or honestly, if you just want to support me, Dan, Gerard, Carbon Cry, or Jesse and Maurice so that we have food on the table every day, consider supporting Moore's Law is Dead on Patreon. And to those that already support us there, I'll see you on the Discord. All right, let me move on to this one here. So Clean Sweep writes in and says, hey guys, do you think that Valve should release a mini PC with the same APU and hardware as this in specs as a Steam Deck 2? Maybe, you know, with some minor allowances, like you can upgrade the RAM, it boosts higher, and it's a little faster. Because it really feels like the Steam Deck has become the bar for PC developers to target as the minimum for PC gaming performance. And Valve providing a definition of this thing can run anything, and this is the minimum, running on SteamOS seems to have a profound impact on budget PC gaming right now. So I wonder what, and I want to kind of parlay this into a greater discussion about what you think they should do with the Steam Deck 2.
Ooh. I think they should just accept the fact that every developer under the sun is using Unreal Engine 5 now, even though I hate it, and make sure that at baseline it can run that engine at least decent, like, you know, maybe medium settings, 30 FPS, I'd be happy with. That's probably the benchmark I'd accept as the minimum. But for this person's question, like, I feel like if they're doing the Deck 2, it's going to be dockable. So you'd want to make sure that the like console version is more powerful at its base, so that it's like worth buying in addition to the Steam Deck 2. Like, yeah, you can dock the Steam Deck 2 and get solid performance, but if you want something that's going to run on your TV, we've got this dedicated box that, you know, is going to push better graphics. Like it's a upgrade that you buy at the same time or something. But like, I just want the same thing, but better with the Steam Deck. I kind of want the Switch 2 of the Steam Deck 2, you know, like I like the trackpads. I like the button placement. I'd like more power in it. The battery life feels good as is. So if they stick to their little rule that like they need the leap in performance for the same battery life,
what would you say the battery life is? Because I've heard mixed things.
On the OLED, which is the one that I use the most, like on Elden Ring, which I'm playing a lot right now, I get like 2.5, 3 hours out of that.
Okay.
On the Castlevania Dominus collection, it's like up to 6 hours, and I've never killed the battery playing that. And the standby time, I use it a lot, so it's never, you know, sitting in standby long enough to die, but I've never really had it just die from being like under my bed or something. So I think the LCD Steam Deck was like very similar, you know, like if I get 2.5, 3 hours out of Elden Ring, you might get 1 hour and 45, 2 hours out of it. So it's always been, you know, pretty much what you'd expect. I would say like a little bit better, maybe. Like it's enough for a flight if you have a power bank or something. It's not terrible, not amazing.
Well, yeah, power banks are becoming a game changer. This is something I talked about in a lot of recent laptop reviews I've done. Some laptops don't do this, and so I think it's a huge demerit. But like the one, again, that I am testing right now, this will be in the review, it can charge from a 5-watt charger. So like,
that's cool.
Who cares about battery life if I can plug it into like some...
I love this camera move you've got. That's interesting.
Yeah, I can do all types of things over here.
That's awesome.
But like, yeah, so... I think as like those didn't even really exist in a real, I mean, there were power banks. It was really just to charge a phone. But like we're getting to the point now where power banks can like power almost weak desktops if you have the
Yeah.
right one. Like they can put out hundreds of watts. And now that we're at that, I think this fundamentally changes the game and like how much battery life you need. I would say though, you want at least 2 to 3 hours. Like you want
Yeah.
a full play session, and if they can hit that, don't make it bigger, make it smaller. If anything,
Yeah.
like make it like just sleeker. And I'm curious what level of performance though you would want out of it, because I've long thought that like what right now the Steam Deck's kind of like a, I don't know, what's the resolution? Is it 800p?
1800p, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like 800p 40, maybe 7. Like you put it a little lower, you can get to 90 frames in some games. Like if I were them, I would be aiming for a solid 1080p or 1440p, like 90. Like let's make this feel as sharp as a dedicated console.
I would love that, dude. Like Gabe did an interview in 2022 where he was like, we had this super cheap option, the $400 64 gig model, and we were shocked that everyone bought the most expensive one. So if like everyone, like that's what I did.
And so how much did that cost at launch? Was it 600?
649, I think.
Right, so that's their target. Okay.
And I paid $750 for the OLED. I got the limited one. And I was happy to do that. Like with
Don't
PC,
be embarrassed. You're an enthusiast. Spend it. Treat yourself.
With PC, I'm happy to pay more, like out the gate. And when they do the Steam Deck too, if there's like a sicko option that's like, you know, this can handle games at 1440p 90, I'd be like so in. That's the dream, you know. But I understood. I think it was smart going into it, like for them to assume that everyone would want the cheapest one.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, now that it's happened, like hindsight being 2020, it's like, yeah, these are PC people. Of course they're gonna want the most expensive one. Like they want this to last. So I think it's good that they're collecting data, and hopefully they'll meet people where they're at with like what they want out of performance. But yeah, the consistent roadblock is Unreal Engine 5, like Oblivion Remastered, like massive. You have to use these like third-party mods to remove Lumen and Nanite and stuff, and that I don't want to do that. Like I don't want to have to install scripts to play a game or anything. I just want the seamless experience I get with most games for every game.
So, I mean, let me throw this question in here as we continue this conversation. Angel Cake writes in, and he basically just asks, how is the new Xbox handheld going to stack up in performance? We'll get the bad one out of the way first. The cheap one, it's just going to perform worse than the Steam Deck is how it's going to perform. And I don't really think that one's interesting at all.
You think worse, even though it's the same chip? Oh, yeah, because it's using Windows.
It's using Windows. And so
a higher resolution screen.
So I don't see any point in that console, because we've had competing handhelds from many boutique mini PC companies too, like Minis Forum. There's no need, or like GPD makes a lot of cool stuff. Like there's no real need for a competitor that's weaker than the Steam Deck, unless it was like a PSP Go size, like 5-watt budget thing. But I don't think this will be, because it uses.
And like, it's weird that they don't just use the Z2 Go like everyone else is, and they're using the like Steam Deck's chip. Like I don't get that either.
I fundamentally don't get it, especially releasing something that week in 2025. So I'm going to throw that aside and just say, don't buy that one. Get a Steam Deck if that's what you want. And then now for the Z2 Extreme or whatever it is, AI Extreme, they probably threw AI in the name for maximum buzzwords. But I mean, look, that one's stronger than a Series S. That one's like between a Series S and a PS5 or Series X. Like that one has. Yeah, just to put things in perspective, off the top of my head, I believe the Steam Deck is like 1.5 teraflops. It has 8 compute units. So I don't remember what speed it runs at, but I want to say it was like between like 1.5 and like 2 gigahertz or like 1.8 gigahertz. The Z2 Extreme can conceivably run at 2.5 gigahertz with 16 compute units that are like 2 generations newer of an architecture. So this one alone is going to be like 3 times the performance if it was on Linux. We'll see how it runs on Windows. So I think what I would say to answer your question of like what they could get out of performance, if they made a Steam Deck built for what's in the Ally X right now, and it ran SteamOS, it was optimized for it, like I think any game you're running at 40 frames is now at 120 at the same resolution, just like that. And in fact, with ray tracing, because it's a newer architecture, it might be 150 frames per second. So I would conceivably say that like we're almost there now in being able to get the experience you want. And I think the Steam Deck 2 is probably a late 26 to 28 product anyway. So I think that's actually going to be very, very easy to go from 800p 40 to like 1080p 120 or something locked in. So I think it's just up to them how they want to do it. What I would recommend is the same thing I'd recommend for the PlayStation 6 is there needs to be a budget option. Like have the $800 model that does everything to your wildest dreams, and then just take a disabled, cut down, cheaper battery, cheaper screen, cheaper everything model. Sell that for $400 to keep feeding that bottom of the market and keep competitors away. That's what I recommend.
That's exactly what I said. It hasn't launched yet, but in my next video, I'm like talking about, potential future, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, cut out the cheap option, like the cheapest option, go for like a mid-grade and a high end, and then clean up. And I hope it's more powerful than whatever we see from Xbox later this year. Like, that's just what I hope. Personally,
like you're just saying if it's stronger than that, you're going to be happy.
And I have the Legion Go S SteamOS version, and it has the Z1 Extreme, and it is a lot faster in 800p than the Steam Deck. Like you get lock 60 in games, you can get 30 in. It's like double the performance. So that has been nice. I like that.
Now as for like any other Steam console, one thing that I have to say is I think it would also behoove Valve to make this thing decently powerful, because you could easily plug this into a VR headset and put it in your pocket and have a wireless VR device. And then if you had a puck, you could sell the puck that plugs into a power bank and also make that, like, all of this. I think making sure it's a modular, it's powerful enough to be used in different places effectively, whether it's VR or a home console that just, gets you locked, a little puck this big, plug it into your TV, gets you locked, 1080p 120. That's all most people actually are okay with 60 frames a second. So
that's me. I like 60. I V-sync everything. Have you heard anything like about them actually working on a console? Because like I look into this all the time, and it seems like everyone's just assuming because of like, the Aerith Plus or whatever, which they debunked and everything. But like you just assume because of the Steam Controller 2 leaking, like clearly they want to get some sort of TV box set up. I don't know.
Someone I've had on the show before, sadly, it's Bradley. He's someone who does a lot of data mining.
I use his stories all the time.
So he's someone who would know better than me on that type of a thing. All I can say is I was told, honestly, a couple of years ago, like full stop, they're using AMD. It's going to be really powerful, and they're going to treat this like a proper console launch. This isn't going to be some little project. They're going to push this to compete as a console with them.
That would be awesome. And I know people are so excited for that controller, since Brad's the one who leaked, or sadly it's Bradley, he's the one who leaked the design of the controller, because I guess like the files were in a update for one of their games, and it's literally like if you just took the Steam Deck screen out and then smashed the sides together. And I want that very bad.
Yeah, so I don't know what else to really say about this, but like, how much of it do you think, and I guess the easy answer for anyone like me and you is we just want more anyways, but like, how much of the excitement would be if they like put out an $800 handheld that does everything, a $500 one that's just better than the old one, but maybe even uses the old screen and stuff and whatever.
Yeah.
But then they also took this APU that was in the strong one, and they just removed the battery to make it cheaper, and also had a $500 puck that you could plug into a TV. Which one would really excite you more, though? Is it the fact that they just have a better Steam Deck, or would it be them going, hey, we're going head to head against PlayStation and Xbox now too?
If the handheld would run the same as the puck, I'd be more excited for the handheld, because I would just actually dock it, because I don't ever dock the Steam Deck unless I'm making a video, like where I have to record the screen in some fashion. So like having that feature be more usable would be very nice. And it kind of like is the ultimate vision of what you'd want out of a PC handheld, like that drop in aspect. Where I did this with my ROG Ally. They sent me the eGPU for it, and it was really cool. Like having that eGPU set up with my monitor and keyboard plugged into it, and then you just drop it in. It uses the handheld as the CPU, and then you've got the GPU outside, and it ran games really well. So like, if you could get that same sort of core experience with the Steam Deck, that would be awesome. I'd want the puck for my TV just to like leave there, but I would probably use it less than the handheld, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just having a minimum would be interesting, because I guess this might be one of the final things to kind of talk to you about, like the future of Xbox a little more. Like, I just don't what I would like Valve to turn into is a pseudo PlayStation and Microsoft competitor. They're not directly competing with PlayStation, really,
Yeah.
or Nintendo. That's not the exact same product in the way Microsoft just like literally wanted to make a PlayStation killer. But like having something, because no one's doing this anymore. Everything's becoming more expensive. A lot of that's inflation, tariffs, yada yada.
Yeah.
The growing of richer people that can afford more expensive things. Great, but like I still think there's room there for someone to try to directly compete with PlayStation. And I wonder if you agree. I just don't think Xbox is going to do that. I'm really concerned that even if they make a next gen console, it's going to be $1,000 or something, and they're just going to completely yeet out of trying to directly compete with PlayStation. And having Valve come out with something that's like kind of a PlayStation 6S competitor that runs Steam, I just think that's something the market needs.
Yeah, and Steam's just built so well. It has a lot of features that people really enjoy using. Like people use the PSN because it's on their PlayStation 5, but people really like using Steam, so they can lean into that really easily. And also something Steam can promise is like, as long as your hardware that you use in the future will run this game, that copy of Left 4 Dead 2 you bought when I was in high school works on my Steam Deck now and my main gaming PC. And that's awesome. Like Sony would have to guarantee that like going forward, every generation is going to be supported in perpetuity. And I feel like they just wouldn't want to guarantee that because they don't know what's going to happen. So like Valve, that would be really cool to see Valve kind of, coming into the space and having a head start from the Steam Deck and everything.
They're laying the groundwork for a
sleeping
giant to emerge that really competes with these people directly. I think.
Yeah. And people really, I like Steam. I enjoy using it, and I like going out of my way to, if a game works good on my PC, I'm like, yes, I get it on Steam. It's just really easy to invite friends, stream to my buddies, blah, blah, blah. Like it does everything I want it to and more.
Yeah, and I think it's just interesting. I think this is something Colin said too, but like it seems like the ever-present third like ghost in this episode, but like he pointed out that like, and I agree with him. I mean, honestly, I think you have to worry more about losing your Xbox titles in the future than you have to worry about losing your Steam titles. And like that is what would make a Steam console be taken more seriously by PlayStation, is because it has that brand backing behind it that I think it's just gone with Xbox at this point.
Yeah, I don't think Steam or Valve gets enough credit for the fact that like you can take your Steam Deck out of your house and play your digital PC games wherever, like without internet, to the point where like if you bought a game, downloaded it to your deck, set it to offline mode and refunded that game works until you go back online. So like that, like they don't get nearly enough credit,
and they don't have
figuring
to do
that out.
They don't have to do that to let you play games offline like this. Like this idea of like DRM destroying everything. It's like, well, I mean, PlayStation lets you play offline, so does Valve. So just don't buy from the stores that don't let you play offline.
And you can like use GOG, and it's awesome. Like if you get the Heroic launcher, which used to suck, like everyone was like, just use Heroic when the Steam Deck came out. And I was like, it's not good, guys. Like I don't need to play my Epic games that bad. I'm happy to rebuy them on Steam. But then they baked in GOG to Heroic, and now it works great. Like I bought the Resident Evil 3 pack because I love those games, and it adds them to Steam for you with one click, and it gives them art. So they're just effectively Steam games. It's great. So like just the fact that Valve just lets you do whatever you want essentially is a big win in my opinion.
So one final question I have for you, just to kind of round this out, because I'm going to be honest, I'm someone that I like the laptop, maybe a tablet like Surface, like, or Minis Forum V3, like removable keyboard tablet thing. That's fine too for me. I like that. And then I like to use a full controller and then play and look at the screen separately. That's me. That's what I like to do. But I've always entertained the idea that if a handheld was truly small enough, maybe I would bring that with me. But is there a point where you think you would trade more performance for it to be like the size of the example I give, because it was tiny, is like a PSP Go, or we could even say like a Vita or something like, or something actually that fits in your back pocket. Let's say it goes from 800p 40 to, like 480p, or like it's just enough so it's not pixelated. Like, is that something you think is a place they should go? Or do you think that this form factor that everything seems to be going to, like the Switch 2 is bigger than the Switch, all of these bigger handhelds. This is what the market's going to want forever. There's not really room for someone to try something like this big again.
If it's something that they can release in a limited capacity, you know, not necessarily like analog, because every interaction I've had with them has been terrible, but like maybe a boutique thing. It's like the Steam Deck Mini. And then it's like the people who want it, they just open up the pre-orders to do an open ceiling. And whoever pre-orders it within this window gets it. If it's successful, they continue down that. Like, I don't think they should do that as the main thing, but I would buy that just to have it. Because that's not like, when you explained it, it sounds awesome.
Like
just a little guy.
But like, yeah, like you actually can have this tiny thing with like enough of a the question would be battery life. That does only have a 30-minute battery life. That'd be a concern. But I mean, again, that's what I think they should do, though. I think the next Steam Deck,
that'd be cool.
They should go for what they have now as wildly stronger. And then they should just take, like, you know, like PlayStation famously and an Xbox, I think, also always disables like it's not one core anymore. But they used to usually disable like one core or some of the compute units for yields. I feel like instead of disabling some of the ones in the expensive Steam Deck next gen, they should just cut like 30% of them down, clock them down to 5 watts, and see if people would buy a mini version that's cheaper. Could have a cheaper screen, cheaper battery, everything could be cheaper. And that's how you segment the two.
And that gets more Steam Decks out there, I guess. Like that's ultimately what they need, is just more out there. But I was laughing when you said you like playing on a laptop with the controller at your desk or whatever, because that's what I do. Mm-hmm. I like keep my controller right here, got my Razer Blade, you know, plugged into my docking station, but I plug it into the TV upstairs all the time. I love laptop gaming. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I just got this thing that's actually very, very powerful. I did it the other day. I was like, I don't want to go upstairs. I'm just sitting there with my beer at night, and I'm like, I don't want to go upstairs and game on my desktop, but I do already have Black Ops 6 or whatever it is on my desktop, and I want to play Call of Duty right now. But I don't want to go. And then I realized, I don't need to like buy to get on PlayStation. I have this laptop. Yeah. And I just plugged it in.
Great.
It's like, it runs 4K Ultra on it, actually. And I'm just like, if you could give me a handheld that got me to 1080p 60 that I can plug into any hotel, and then I don't have to bring anything with me, like in a tiny bag. No one's doing it. The technology's kind of not there yet. I just wonder if it was there, would it be worth doing that, or just making the bigger thing faster? But it sounds like you think they should at least try it.
Yeah, you made it sound cool, I will say. Like, I'd prefer the more powerful one, but like, I'm such a sucker for this crap that like, if they made multiple SKUs, I'd buy both. Like, if we're talking, you know, what we said earlier, where it's like the really expensive version, it's got like the OLED screen, the great battery, blah blah blah, and then the one that doesn't, I'm just buying the better one. But if there's like the Switch and the Switch Lite, I had both of those because I thought they were both really cool. Like, I like messing around with tech and seeing what ends up coming into my backpack and sticking with me in the long run. But yeah, the Steam Deck remains undefeated. That goes everywhere with me. This laptop, if I'm like traveling to Chicago to see my wife's family, if I'm traveling, you know, over to Long Island to hang out with Jake, like then I'll bring the laptop. But like most of the time it's the Steam Deck.
Mm-hmm. All right. And that, I assume that would be, I guess we'll see if that changes with the ROG Ally X, but I continue to sit here and think, like, I just feel like the brand and the fact that it runs SteamOS so effortlessly, like that is what made Steam Deck succeed. It isn't the performance, and what's going to make the Ally X fail or not is not that it's stronger than the Steam Deck. Do they actually make Windows as efficient as Steam? Mm-hmm. If they do, you know, Valve will have some competition on their hands here. If they don't, I don't think people care about the extra performance. If, you know, it's like a 2-hour battery life in the games, like I don't really
you can get it right now. Like you could just go buy an Ally X and it's like pretty much the same thing. And no one really does.
And if you want the strongest one, apparently there's going to be some like GPD, I think, $2,000 handheld stronger than a PS5. So that's going to be for the people with all of the money anyways.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think this is a good place to close the episode on, Jimmy. I mean, thank you so much for coming on. Please tell everybody where they can find you, plug anything you want.
Oh yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. This was awesome. I don't do a lot of podcasts, so like this is really fun. And it's not often I talk to people who really enjoy handheld like gaming and PC gaming as much too. So that was also fun. You can find me at Deck Ready on YouTube. I use the same thumbnail for every video, so it's really easy to find. It's the Steam Deck.
There will be a Steam Deck.
And then like a different colored background. I've been branching out into like, I did a video about my desktop that runs SteamOS. That was a fun video. I've been, doing more single topic, just opinion based stuff like that one that you brought up earlier about, the Xbox handheld. So it's just a channel about the Steam Deck, nothing too crazy. And I'm on Twitter at Jimmy Champagne. It's pretty easy to find.
All right. And of course, subscribe to Moore's Law Z on YouTube. Ring the bell button, like, comment, share it, and also subscribe to the podcast Broken Silicon on your podcast app of choice. Give us a review there as well. Get those numbers up. And we have a Patreon where you can join us, of course. There's bonus die shrinks. I have a new one. It should be coming out next week with the guy who's in charge, like at the forefront of the Stop Killing Games movement. So that should be a really interesting interview for anyone who joins us there. And there's a Discord and everything else you would expect from a multi-tiered Patreon. And otherwise, thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening. And as always, have a good rest of your week. This podcast was brought to you by the YouTube channel and website Moore's Law is Dead. Moore's Law is Dead and Broken Silicon are trademarks of their creator, Tom. That guy is me, and I am indeed the creator, editor, writer, and showrunner of Moore's Law is Dead podcasts, videos, articles, and other media. However, it's not just me. Moore's Law is Dead is a team, with Broken Silicon co-hosted by my brother Dan, audio editing by Gerard Cortez, renders being done by the industrial designer Jean-Philippe Clermont, and special assistance is also provided by Carbon Cry and Carrie No Sugata as well. Find all of our information at www.mooreslawsdead.com on the About/Support page. In the event you do want to hire me for consulting work, hire Gerard for audio work, hire Jean-Philippe for industrial design work, or you're interested in working with Carbon Cry or Carrie No Sugata as well. You can also find our long-term sponsors on that page if you want to show them some love for putting food on our tables. Or you can also mail us some love. You can send letters or hardware donations to the following address: Moore's Law is Dead, P.O. Box 60632 in Nashville, Tennessee, zip code 37206. Although, to be honest, the best way to show Moore's Law is Dead some love is to support us on Patreon. Patrons are what makes Moore's Law is Dead content truly possible. Every month, and really every day, depending on who you're talking about, me, Gerard, Dan, and Jean-Philippe are working tirelessly to provide a steady stream of content that we could not keep doing unless we knew the work was possible without being reliant on sponsors dictating every little thing we put out. Don't get us wrong. We love our sponsors, but we love directly working for you, our fans, much more. If you have any extra money, even a couple free dollars a month, consider supporting us directly on Patreon. Those couple of monthly dollars will get you access to the exclusive podcast Die Shrink, voting on subjects of future podcast episodes, the ability to ask guests questions, and of course, access to the Moore's Law is Dead Discord full of like-minded people who I am sure would love to meet you. I am one of them. Additionally, higher tiers get access to early, ad-free episodes of Broken Silicon, the ability to ask questions in all Broken Silicon episodes and Loose Ends live streams ahead of the recording, and the entire back catalog of Moore's Law is Dead podcasts, in addition to having thanks in the credits of videos and podcasts depending on the tier, with other perks available as well. And hey, if you cannot afford to support us directly every month, please do share Moore's Law is Dead videos and podcasts with friends and family, and on social media and websites like Reddit, and give Broken Silicon a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app of choice. All of this does really help us so much. But like I said, this podcast would not be possible without the patrons directly providing predictable and reliable support every month. And so now it is time to give a personal thanks to the greatest of the fans. The following supporters are at the 10 gigahertz or higher supported levels: Brad Medlin, Drita Foles, Z Jits, Daniel D, Deke, Nicholas Buckner, Aaron Close, Jan Rauner, Daniel Hyde, MJV1, Toka, GZ Ziggy, SNES Chalmers, Compressed iBlocks, Jerem Ferrier, Velcom Alev, Jensen Wang, Sarcastra, Chris Rich, Evan Dingle, Hal Booma, Shredbird, Sammy Malas, The Boss Haas, Tommy, Chrysantheanos, Jonathan, Nithra Zink, Amiable Chief, Jake Dude 23, Jake Martin, I Should, Zlicky, Gamers Unite, Meat and Pork, Ian Clifford, Tim Robb, Travis Gooding, Mad, Zutsu Taylor, Greg, Michael McGee, Patty Cake, Stephen Coates, Mark Mitchell, James Anderson, Mark Raidmaker, Cole Addict, Cameron, Henry Zhang, Wesley Sager, Win Wang, Michelle Pell, Hexapuma, Reginald Ari, Teak Autumn, Winstar, Corey Leonard, James I. Raider, Little Germany, Shay, Milton, Brett Jones, Chuck Glidden, Mac Daffy, Stephen Dick, John Swin, Justin Bussell, Austin Haggerty, Joe Foot, Brian Scanlon, Harlan, Jason Angima, Joseph Kelly, Slushbaugh, Him Segung, Tails2299, Brian Wright, Sisyphos7771, The Forbidden Juice, RB Racer, Alex Vega, Michael Cozy, Thalo215, Crystal Joe, Elbergun, Kcom Solarized 80, 37 by 73, Sprutnik, Ryan P, Hoodat42, Cornster 671, Penta Winter, Hal Richard, State Farm Steak, Omega Doge, Mr. Tiger, Hugo Ander, Kiwi, John Wick Boomstick, Penguins Love AI Soldier 789, Porcelain Oats, Curry King 3, Nick Zuzmania, Fred Burger, Rye Hill, Chi Bowles, Smash Axley, Sheriff Lotfi, Karim Almarzi, Kevin Kuntz, Manolis, Rag Kusis, Armand Vakatura, Jonathan Harris, Callan, Reichel, Elusive Man, Kainush, Kagani, Zubair, Ahmed, Bajorn, Toft, Johnny Trans, and Angel of Cake. And as always, thank you to Sahara for the music.